Live it is. What is up, guys? Thank you for tuning into the Modern Macho. This is your host, Juan Carlos. I'm here with my boy, Santi.
Yo, what up, everybody?
We are two gentlemen documenting our journey. We're embracing the dudes that we are in order to become better men for ourselves and our village. We're tired of fitting the mold. We're tired of dick measuring contests. And we're tired of pretending to be somebody that we're not. After each episode, we hope that we're able to plant a seed, get you to start a conversation with your circle, challenge your thinking, motivate you to focus on growth, and hopefully bring awareness to the twisted programming that we've been brought up with believing. Today, we are taking a second to reflect, to recap. We've been having a lot of very, very meaningful, very intentional conversations, which have been amazing, right? But we decided like it's a lot. It's a lot for us even to process and to kind of reflect on. So we're like, fuck, dude,
Yeah,
let's slow it down for a second. Let's pour a drink. Let's check in with each other. And then let's talk about what these last couple weeks have been, talking to therapists and talking to professionals. So thank you guys for joining. Don't forget to drop in the chat here where you're listening in from. If you guys have any questions, drop them in there too. Join us in on the conversation. And yeah, what's up, bro? How you doing?
chilling, bro. Yeah, no, I'm really happy that we are taking this time to slow down. Um, Let me just I'm just making a note here.
Nice. No,
Um,
full send.
yeah, dude. I mean, I'm happy we get to slow down a little bit. Because I think one of the things I noticed in our conversations with the therapist was been dude, they cover a lot, and there's a lot that's being said. And no fault of anyone, like we just don't have the time to go in depth, right?
Right, right,
And because for every single topic that we've touched on, I feel like there's always something more that I'm like, ah, man, I wish we could have touched on this. I wish that, and whatever. And then I also think like there's that piece for all of us because this is new for everyone, right? It's not like we come in here with these prescripts, right? Frankly, once again, no one has time to do all that shit. So I always think like the first 20, 30 minutes, we're feeling each other out. We're just meeting these people and kind of getting that conversation going. And then finally, we kind of start covering stuff. And so I think it's just a little bit of everything. That being said, I felt very privileged to have had a conversation with all these folks because I could tell they're just beast ass therapists who are really about the work. I honestly, every time I feel a certain sense of privilege to be like, wow, man, I'm really like, and by no means is this for me a free therapy session, but the
right,
insight that I'm able to share with them and their responses and vice versa, it just feels very much like, oh man, this is a very cool space to be in. Um, where neither you or we're not fucking therapists, we're not licensed, we're not professionals, but to feel that we're in the ballpark is nice and it's
right.
validating, to be honest with you, um and I also feel it's cool to know that that we're I think the work that we're doing is solid, so it's been validating for sure.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt, dude, no doubt. I mean, definitely, I think a big thank you to them, first and foremost, right, for taking the time, going out of their way to join us on these conversations, right? Because you bring up a good point, which is I almost feel like we're at the forefront of trying to have them with them, and throwing our occasional banter, and
Yeah,
even thanks for them putting up with us
I
sometimes, right? And
know.
like some of the shit that we say and how we handle it, you
And you know
know?
what? Like, I think that's fine. I mean, most of us aren't gonna come in with the
Yeah.
fucking that theory 101 like talk of like, I forgot someone said a fucking word. It may have been Cesar, and I was just like, what did you say? Like, I think when he was, it may have been him, which we could talk about later. But anywho, no, yeah, it's been super dope.
Yeah, I
But in
think
terms
just
of yeah,
their
no, yeah,
openness, man. Their openness, I think them wanting to support, believing in our message, believing in our
yeah,
intention and what we're trying to do, what we're trying to kind of bring to the table, and then just kind of really supporting us and being like, fuck yeah, we'll join you on an episode. Let's talk about this. And we know that you're not gonna know everything. We know that some of this stuff, at least for me too, is like intimidating. Maybe a little
yeah,
weird, right? But it's like, fuck it, let's start somewhere, bro. Right? Like if you
yep,
guys keep hanging out with professionals and have your conversations over there with just clients, and I keep hanging out over here on my corner, judging and saying the things that I'm saying, how am I really getting anywhere? So I think the willingness from them as well as from us to just kind of sit together and be like, well, fuck it, let's just talk and see what
yeah.
happens, has been really cool.
No, for sure. Yeah. And so, yeah, no, yeah, in terms of how I'm doing, dude, fucking, I've been all right to be honest. I mean, besides this, obviously, I think, dude, like I'm just at that point where, like, dude, like the job, like I think that's all I'm constantly thinking about. And if it's not job, it's like work adjacent, where I'm like, okay, well, I'm looking for work because right now I know I'm like pretty deep in some job searches where I'm getting those second calls and whatnot and getting those invitations, and I'm like, fuck, dude, like the pressure starts to hit, the doubts, dude, high key, man. I actually had an interview. I don't think I told you last week during my conference. I had an interview while I was out there. Dude, first question in, full blown panic attack. My hands went numb, dude. That's how bad it was. Like my hands. Luckily, it was a Zoom interview, but I was this close to just saying, "Excuse me, I need a moment," and going off camera so I can collect myself. And then I told myself, "No, if you do that, you're gonna make this too real. Just keep going."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which once again comes to that question, right? Is that me being stubborn and not just letting go and feeling what I feel?
Sure.
Is that me surviving, right? There's so many ways to look at that. But man, it fucking sucked. And it was just, I didn't expect for it to get like, from that part of my brain to get triggered so quickly. But yeah, man, it was an experience.
Yeah. So what did that, I mean, if I can ask, like, what did that look like? Like, how did you get through it?
I just kept talking.
Really?
Like,
Really?
I don't like, so honestly, dude, I don't think it was on the first question. The question was a very vague question. It was like, why do you think you're fit for this position, essentially? And I think what happened was my brain went seven different directions as to how to answer it.
Mm.
And I freaked out because I didn't know which way to take it.
Oh,
I didn't know
yeah.
where to start. It's not that I didn't have a response. It's just like, the lights are
Like, which one
on.
do I choose?
Which one do I choose, right?
Mm.
Make sure you choose the right one, motherfucker. And so, yeah, that was, and so honestly, I told him I was talking, but really the whole time I was thinking about what I was feeling. And like I said, I remember thinking, okay, you need to ask for some time, you need to ask to like step away, you need to do this, you need to do that. And then from that to, no, keep talking, just keep talking, calm down, your hands are numb. And like, because I think that was the thing that I felt the most, besides
Sure.
like that anxious feeling in your chest, was like my hands legit went numb and felt like sweaty and shit. um and then, so I think once I got like in somewhere in the second or third question, where the questions started getting more specific, I was able to focus more on the question because it wasn't
Okay.
so broad. I didn't have to think about how I wanted to answer it per se. It's just
Right.
like, okay, focus on this example, go. And so it was a little bit more relaxing for me. But yeah, dude. I mean, once again, talk about the fucking anxiety that comes with those changing chapters and whatnot. And so, yeah, and then besides that, I was telling you earlier, but at work, man, all the accountability conversations I've been having, and I think some of the that inner child shit that starts coming out, where essentially, long story short, I've been having trouble with a worker of mine, coworker, and so it just yesterday came to a head where I've had to have a lot of conversations with this person, um, accountability conversations, and yesterday something just clicked in my fucking head, and I was telling Carlos, I was like, dude, I feel like when I have these accountability conversations, I turn into my dad, and I turn
Yeah.
into my dad how he would talk to me when I was fucking up. And I would like to say I've done it in a more human and nice and job way, I guess. But nonetheless, I still feel like, God damn, dude, like, and that's not even a jab at my dad, more so like, I know the impact it had on me sometimes. And to think that I'm having that impact on others, where like, oh man, I'm like, am I really even helping them at that point? Or am I just, shoving their face in their own shit? and what does that do for them, you know? So I
Yeah.
just think like a lot of shit's just been circulating in my brain and just trying to navigate that. So
Yeah, yeah. It's
just
crazy.
tired overall. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I think I really resonate with that too. Like, I think for me, even sometimes the frustration of trying to thinking that I'm doing things differently than the way that I was brought up,
Yeah.
and then that voice that's like, "Damn, I literally am saying this." I wonder if part of the frustration is that too. You know,
Mhm.
that we're trying to put ourselves in a different place, and I mean, essentially, we're healing as we're, especially you being like me. And even if you weren't, but your role is a supervision role, right? Like you're essentially trying to be. I mean, you don't have to be because some people suck at it, bro, to be honest. But like as someone that takes pride in their work, it's like you want to be able to lead, and so you're almost like having to be the leader at trying to model at the same time navigating through your healing, and so that frustration of like fuck, I'm trying to do things differently, and here I am sounding exactly the same.
Yeah.
And then furthermore, connecting it, like you said, connecting it to what you've gotten out of it, and I think makes it worse. Also because I think you're putting a lot of effort into what you're doing,
Right.
right? And I
Yeah.
think like it's like you're trying so hard to help to do things correctly, and then to make the connection of like all this that I'm going out of my way to do, and it feels exactly the same way that it felt when I was being put down for doing something wrong.
Yeah, no, definitely, dude. And it's like, and then I think it's just so frustrating because then it goes full circle. And I'm like, but I'm doing it because I fucking care. Like, can't you see that?
Right, right, right. Yeah, no, I hear
You know.
you. Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's
But yeah,
it's
dude,
interesting.
you know, I mean, other than that, I've been missing the book club, but you know, I'm gonna get back to it.
Yeah, of
I
course.
started that the Atomic Habits today, and so really good book. And once again, like some of the things that because I'm doing the audiobook that I heard today, it made me think of like a lot of the shit that I'm going through with this person. And you know, once again, man, it's all love, and I think that's a philosophy I'm from this podcast, from talking to people. It's like that's a philosophy I'm really trying to stick by, is to like just like whatever love means to me, to you, whatever, like, but really be about that, right? Be having that care centered approach when it comes to meeting people,
Yeah.
and really trying to care about like the well-being of those around me, because I think that shit will reciprocate back to me at one point or another, and I feel like I've seen it happen if I allow myself to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, dude. As I mean, I don't know if we've shared this, but we're reading Atomic Habits right now by James Clear. And yeah, it's definitely been very eye-opening. It's a very I think we've talked about it even in the space that the books we've been picking have been good. They've obviously had their flaws, and we've had these conversations, and we've all had different opinions on that and stuff, which has been cool. But I think more importantly, just the community that we've been able to build. For me, it's really reflecting on being in a space with other men and seeing what having healthy conversations looks like. What it's like to have different opinions and actually respect each other and to validate each other, right? And to really create a safe space, right? Create a safe space to challenge one another. And I think that that's kind of one of the things I'm taking away from this too is I realized part of me avoiding that confrontation is that like it's just like it always goes south, right? There is
Mhm.
no coming to an agreement. So I think I've
Yeah.
as at a younger age, I had a tendency of sure respecting people's opinions, but just leaning towards people that always thought like me, right? And it was kind of weird because I felt like I wasn't able to grow that way because I wasn't open to understanding different ideas and different opinions and different perspectives and different views. However, it was just way too uncomfortable for me to handle that I was going to places where people very much thought like me, and so
Mm.
the club has really helped me be in a space where everyone can think very differently, but still come at it from a place of love.
Yeah.
And this book specifically, going into Atomic Habits, and really just being at the beginning of it, one of the questions that would that and shout out to my boy Q, shout out to my boy Al, who are like the two guys that are helping Al now, taking the head on for us and really helping keeping the book club alive for us. And I really really appreciate that. Obviously to my guy Matas as always for just keeping up to date with all the information that we're doing, whether it's the podcast stuff, whether it's the emails on the book club sessions and things like that. And so, but one of the questions that Al had asked us was like, how do we approach this like the value of disappointment, right? When it comes towards working towards a goal, which is basically when we get to that point where we start getting discouraged, like how do we approach that, and I think that was something that for me really stood out because when I was asked that, I told him like I don't know. Honestly, I feel like I'm coming into this question blind and I don't have the answer. Um, but I think I'm starting to process that it feels very weird and kind of like crazy to celebrate the things that I'm doing right.
Mhm.
And even just talking about it and being like, oh, dude, it's weird. Like for me to be like, Carlos, you got this, or like, Carlos, you're doing good. Like I didn't realize how much that to me feels very crazy. Like at the same time, for me to be hard on myself, it's just so normal.
Yeah. It's the habit you
Like, that's
already
just
have.
like, you know what I mean? Like, for me
Yeah.
to be like, "Hey, son, dude, I don't mean to sound crazy, bro, but, like, sometimes I say nice things to myself, right?" Like, you know what I'm saying? But then to be like, "Hey, dude, no, but I put myself down. I'm a perfectionist. I shoot for the stars every single time," and how much that's really stopped me from even taking the leap on things.
Yeah.
I thought about even, like, working out, right? And it was like I go through these phases, and then it's like once I got in the move, I stopped again, and the first thought that I have when I try to work out is like, "Bitch, you're gonna do this again." You're just gonna do this for like a week and
Mhm.
you're gonna stop. It's like I automatically go into that mode of like, bitch, you're not gonna do this. Like,
Yeah.
why even get started again? You've already tried this. Just stop. And so like really, I think eye opening for me was working on getting out of my head, getting out of my head, and what I really appreciate about that first chapter really was just the whole 1% idea, right? Which is just like just these small victories, small
Marginal
victories, small victories.
gains.
Yeah, dude. And so, and I think what I really appreciated about that is that me, because I'm a numbers guy, because I like finances, it put it into terms that I understood, and I was like, "Oh, you're right."
Mhm.
High risk, high reward. I can go do some options and potentially make a shit ton of money in a couple days, but there's a lot of risk involved in that, right? And if you're good at it, you can eliminate some of that risk, but it's a lot riskier nonetheless than going over to a mutual fund where you know that your percentages are going to be a lot lower, but
Yeah.
there's a lot more consistency with that, right? And it's
Mhm,
so
mhm.
much more sustainable, but you won't see it for a while. You know what I mean? And
Right.
so I think the investing side of it, when it put it into those terms, it started to make sense. And I think really sharing that space with other guys, and I guess I share that because I'm sure there's some men that are going to be listening to this, and it's like, hey, I want to encourage you guys, like, hey, check it out, man, come join us, come through. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Go on the Instagram, the Modern Macho, click on the link, go into our bio, you'll see the men's club there. You can sign up, join us, have the conversation. I'm telling you, like, it's been really cool sharing this space with the guys. Even just I think sometimes processing parts of the book that I'm like, I don't get it.
Right.
Or like, I didn't really get anything out of this. And then after the session, some of us have been like, "Oh shit, like I see things a little differently than I thought." So
Mhm.
that's been really, really, really cool, dude. Very rewarding. I think it's been very humbling to for me to learn. I feel like I've been learning so much from really sitting back and listening to what the rest of the gentlemen in the space really have to share and their insight.
Yeah. No, for sure, bro. And how are you doing, man? How is
Bro,
Carlos?
I'm good, man. It's funny. I got chewed out last week by my therapist.
Nice.
'Cause she's like, "How you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm good." She's like, "What's been going on?" And so then I started telling her about work. I started sharing with her about Julian, things that have been going on with him and just like the awesome things that he's been doing. I was telling her about how the podcast has been going, everything that we've been doing moving forward, the plans that we have. An opportunity presented itself. I think I might have mentioned this already for me to facilitate the Nurturing Fatherhoods program that I just did the training for. Going back to the hometown, man, going back to Mobile, and I'm going to be doing the 13-week program back there. So this will be coming up in June, just in time for Father's Day. Um, so I was sharing all this shit with her, dude, for like 40 minutes, and she's like, "Not once have you talked about yourself." And
Ooh.
I'm like, "Fuck." I
Got
was
him.
like, "Fuck, dude." And
Damn.
so I think since last week, I've really been trying to focus on that. I think I've been good, man. I think I've been good. I think that session also made me realize that part of me staying busy is still avoiding some certain things, whether it's maybe revisiting wounds or avoiding wounds that I know that are going to have to resurface in terms of me moving forward. And so I think maybe not stressing out about you need to do this, but I think more so asking myself the question why.
Mm.
What are we so hesitant about facing? And so I think I'm being completely honest now. I think there's a lot of fear, right? I think there's a lot of things that I'm grieving still, that I'm failing to accept. And so just kind of processing those things little by little. But I think prioritizing them because I know how important that is for me to take care of myself. Knowing that I don't have to have the answers by today, by tomorrow, in the next week or so, but taking the time to focus on that. So other than that, man, I've been good. I messed up my back a little bit, so that kind of put me on a fucking
How'd you fuck up your back? What
dude.
happened?
So I think what it was, man, is that because of the move, I haven't been working out as often. So even though I don't work out, I get my runs in, right? I try to get my runs in with the kids, especially when playing soccer. I try to do some
Mm,
active. I play soccer on the weekend, so I'm moving. I haven't been, dude. And then with the rain, we haven't had practices, so I haven't been doing any of that. Which again, I could be prioritizing this, and I could be doing this. I just haven't. And then Saturday, I ended up going to San Diego, and I did a turnaround trip to drop off some things for my mom.
mm,
One of her friends was gonna cross the border just so I can drop her some things. So I did a turnaround trip to San Diego. Um, Dude, there was so much traffic. It took me like I was probably basically on the car for like 7 hours, and I didn't stop, dude. Like I didn't
fuck.
stop. I literally drove straight there. I dropped off the items and drove straight back.
God
Even when I got
damn.
food, I just hit the drive through. I didn't get off the car once, and so I
What'd you
think
get for
that had
food?
to do
What'd you
with
get for
it.
food?
What did I get? I think I went with the McDonald's. Oh, which by
Okay,
the
fuck
way,
yeah,
I
fuck
tried
yeah.
the
Let's go.
because I knew I was gonna be driving, so I usually get like an Oreo McFlurry. But I
Okay,
tried their seasonal strawberry cheesecake,
alright.
bro. So good,
So fire.
so good, dude. If
I
you get a
love
chance
cheesecake.
to,
God
definitely
damn.
order it. It's got like these little like crunchy, like
Mmm.
cookies, and
Like
then the
bites,
strawberry.
little bite-sized strawberry. Oh, hell
Bro,
yeah, dude.
it was
Down.
so good. So I
That
did
sounds
that.
brutal though.
Yeah. I mean, the next day was. So I think because of that, and the next morning I went to go play soccer. And dude, I probably jogged for like literally they blew the whistle. I probably jogged for like 5 minutes,
Oh,
and not
no.
even during a play. And then out of nowhere, I just felt my back, and I'm like, "What
Like
the
your lower
heck?"
back or what?
Lower back, and
Ooh.
I couldn't move. Actually, I'm going to the chiropractor tomorrow, but yeah, dude, I couldn't walk. I couldn't put my socks on the next day. It was
Yeah.
bad, dude. I was like
Man, we're
legit
old,
scared,
dog.
dude. I was legit
Sheesh.
scared. I was like, I don't think I'm gonna be able to walk ever again.
Nah,
I was
dude.
so scared, and so that kind of put me on hold a little bit.
Yeah,
Um, but other than that, dude, I mean, work's been good.
yeah.
I feel really like motivated now that everything got handled. Really motivated about work. I've been having a lot of fun with Julian lately, which has been so
Hell
cool.
yeah.
Like we've just been enjoying our time together. I've been trying to learn a lot more and how to be more intentional with my parenting. And shout out to Liz. She's we're gonna be doing an episode actually next week. And she's a therapist. She's super awesome, dude. So she was sharing with me. She actually made a comment when we talked yesterday on our live, where she was like saying, like when Julian's like upset or something, like asking him like, "What do you need from me?" And dude, that stuck with me. It stuck with me so much. Like all day today, I've been thinking about that. Like fuck, like I've never asked him that. Like I'm always trying to like figure out how to solve his problems or how to help, right? If he's telling me he's
Yeah,
upset, I'm already like, "Oh, I know him. I know what makes him feel better." Like, right? Like to me, that's already it's kind of like you said, like I think I'm making so much progress, right? And I think I'm learning so much. And I'm like, oh, I'm doing better than my parents. Yeah, I know what you need. Because I know you. My parents didn't take a second to get to know me. I know you. Let me give you what you need. But I was like, damn, like I'm not giving him a chance to really ask me what he needs from me. And
yeah.
so that was like very eye opening. I'm like, damn, I need to definitely start asking him that more often. Like, Papa, what do you need from me right now?
And you know, the funny thing is, I think beyond you being able to get to the point maybe faster, more efficiently, like, it also allows him to start
Exactly.
practicing what the fuck is wrong.
Right.
Because usually, like, we feel something and we react, and we never, like, even as adults, when's the last time we were upset about something? Is like, why am I really upset? Like, what
Right.
is it that I really need? Dude, just the other day, I was about to say I had a temper tantrum. And so, just FYI to anyone who's listening, we're not fucking professionals, man.
Yeah.
I am such a piece of shit sometimes. And so the other day, drove out to Moreno Valley because we were going to stay at my parents because Denise and I were going to a wedding out there. And my parents are in Mexico right now. So my mom had been asking me, "You have keys for the house?" And I do have keys to the house, right? They're on my keychain. And so the day we left, I took Denise's keys because we went in Denise's car.
Oh no.
I have keys to my parents' house, whatever, bro. I get off to get to my parents' house. My once again, no one's home, and it clicked. I don't have my keychain with me,
No.
bro. And I mean, I was probably on the road not 7 hours, probably like an hour and some change, and
Sure.
I fucking hate driving, I hate traffic, and I literally just started screaming, "I'm so stupid. What the fuck, man?" And, like, Denise was like, "Dude, you need to chill. Fuck that shit." Dude, like, it was a thing, like, it was a thing.
Right.
And I was able to figure it out. I ended up going to my sister's house in Rancho, picking up keys that she has, and then went back
Okay.
to the right instead of going all the way back to Long Beach. And even on the way to my sister's, like, I'm chilling. What? Like, like just have these
Like,
fucking
you're
explosions.
you're like, do you ever find yourself, like, as you're trying to calm yourself down, then you start processing, like, "What could I be doing right now if I would've got there on time?" Right? And then you just get
Right.
right back to where you were. You're like, "Fuck."
Exactly, dog. It was a roller coaster. I mean, it really was a roller coaster.
Uh,
And so, yeah, once I got the keys from Myra and was on my way back was when I was really like, okay, I think I'm over it.
Sure, sure.
Um, but yeah, no, it was funny because I had to apologize to Denise, of course. I'm so sorry. So that's okay. I just had to give you space.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
appreciate that, like for not engaging with me because I was just a mess.
And then I think it also I think it also, like, it I feel at some point we just kind of accept whatever's given to us or whatever's being told to us, right? Like with Julian. I For all he knows is he's just accepting that I bought him something, that I gave him a hug, that I'm giving him solutions to his problems. Like, he just accepts that because
Yeah.
to your point, he's not actually processing any of this. He's just allowing it to happen. And I'm sure there's like legit, like you said, we're not professionals. I'm sure there's legit terms for everything that we're saying. But I feel like that's what ends up happening with teenagers, where it's no longer about what you're giving me and what you're trying to do to love me, but like now it's I figured out what I actually need. I figured out how
Right.
I actually want to be loved. Because I thought about that too, bro. um, I had a deep conversation with my dad this last weekend. That was another thing that happened that was very like eye opening. Is I basically got it came the I would say the highlight of that conversation was me asking my dad, "How do you feel about loving somebody the way they want to be loved instead of you loving them how you want to love them?" And
Mm,
my dad basically was like, "No, like if I want to buy you something, that's how I'm gonna love you because that's
got it.
what's in my heart to give you."
And you should appreciate that.
Exactly, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay." I was like, "Okay, I hear what you're saying." I was like, "Well, so do you think that, if I was to say, 'Hey, pops, I just want you to spend 10 minutes with me on Saturday. Can you come over?' And what you wanna do is you wanna buy me a bunch of T-shirts and a bunch of pants, and all this new clothes. Which one do you think would be the right one?" And he's like, "The clothes, because that's what I wanna do for you. That's what I wanna give you."
Hmm.
And so it was like,
Right.
but being able to, there was a couple things that came up for me, bro. One is I think validating the fact that, well, I have a very it's not as bad now, right? And I think I've broken through a majority of that, but I used to have a very transactional type of love growing up, right? And I always had that mindset, and even in my relationships. And so I think initially it was like validating and like, no wonder I've been the way that I am because my dad
Mhm.
very much still has these beliefs, and I've learned a
Yeah.
lot from them, right? It's how I've been conditioned. But then also I think I'm very grateful that I've gone through my own healing where I didn't take it personally. And if anything, I felt like it was an opportunity to try to help my dad to see things a little differently, you know? Because then I
Mm.
I kind of was asking him, I was like, well, I was like, guys, I hear what you're saying. And I was like, well, and I asked him, I was like, well, let me ask you this, Pops. When do you feel the most heard? I was like, who do you think of when you think of the person that listens to you and really understands you? And he was like, nobody. And I
Damn.
was like, well, no fucking wonder. And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, no wonder, you know, the fact that you find it difficult to listen to somebody when they say, "Hey, I just want 10 minutes." How are you ever going to understand what that is when nobody listens to you? Nobody
Yeah.
takes a second to how you're feeling, and you don't feel
Mm.
like anybody's there listening to you. And I think it kind of like even put things into perspective even for my dad, where he was kind of, "Whoa." And
That was
and
deep.
so, dude, yeah, it
Actually.
was very eye opening, like I said, for the
Yeah.
both of us, because, and I think that's a cultural thing, right? That's the way that we've shown love, especially when we haven't had much, is by having those gifts, right? The goods, and here's a luxury, here's a home, here's all this stuff, and even they were talking about, I don't know if you know that John Sebastian's son just died, right?
Yeah, dude.
He
Wild.
overdosed, bro, and
Is that what happened?
I'm as far
Okay.
as
I
as
mean,
far as I know, they refused to do an autopsy,
Got it. So
But
that this is
there
because it was a heart attack.
my boy was having some issues with drugs, I believe, and so it's unfortunate. I'm again, I'm speculating. I didn't look enough into it. This was
Yeah.
just the conversation we had at the table. But what was interesting about that, right, is just like my dad right away. No, you're like these kids. They have everything. They
Mm.
have everything, and here they are. And so it's one of those where it was triggering, where it's like,
Yeah.
you want to jump in and be like, no, they don't fucking have everything. But then
Uh-huh.
understanding that it's like, well, this is all they know. This is
Yeah.
all, and so I think it again, it helps me for the sake of accepting also that, like, I'm not here to I can't wait for my dad to see things differently for me to do my healing,
Yeah.
right? I can't wait for my mom, and I'm grateful that I can have these conversations with them that I think have been very productive, but I also know that I'm not waiting for the conversation in order for me to move forward with my own life,
Mm. Yeah.
Because
Well,
I'm thinking where my dad's at now, and I'm like, this
yeah.
man still believes that I love you how I want, and these kids suck because they have money and they're not happy. And I'm
Mm.
like, his awareness isn't there to understand that no, that's not what he needed. That's the problem, is we thought we gave him what he needed, but nobody ever asked him what he needed from us, you know?
Yeah. Let me ask you this. What how does that make you feel though? How did that make you feel that I mean, or does that he is kind of in that
Mhm.
cycle?
So it makes me sad. Obviously, it makes me sad. One of the things that I did ask my dad is if he was willing to go to therapy. And it was funny because my dad was like, "Pues," that was his answer.
That's not bad,
No,
dog.
no,
That's
no,
not
it's
bad.
not. It's not
Yeah.
bad at all. But my dad was like, "Pues," you know what
Bro, I can
I
already see it.
mean? Like, just like put his head down, "Pues," and I'm like, okay. so so no, and then to your point, to me, that was everything because I knew that, like, that's him being willing. And
Yeah,
me as a son is like, I need to do my part to provide that space for him because he's willing. He's fucking willing. He's not just gonna be like, oh fuck yeah, let's do this because it's weird,
yeah.
because it's uncomfortable. So I think it makes me sad. It makes me sad because of the way that my dad thinks. It feels like one of his big things right now too, man, is like he wants to take care of himself because he doesn't want to be a burden to me or to my brother and sister. And I'm like, "Dog, who's ever told you this?"
Is
And
that a new
so
you said it's a new thing
no,
that's
my dad's
popping
kind
up?
of always thrown yeah, the new conversations are new, but my dad's always kind of like throwing these little jabs about that. And so
Got it.
he said something that was like, "Well, that's the law of life.
Mm,
That's just the way the book is written. Like that's the law of life." And so I think we kind of talked about this about something very different, but we had this conversation earlier about like really being awareness of what we're really trying to say.
yeah,
Right. And like I said, we talked about it for a very different topic, but it was the same idea of like, what are we really trying to say? Similar to like when I've said,
right.
oh, all women are the same. It's like, okay, valid. But what I really meant was the women that I've had experiences with, these similarities have happened. Right. Like I'm
This
not
has,
wrong in what I
yeah.
was saying. It's just the way I worded it was incorrect. And so like I think when my dad
Well,
said
no,
like
I would say you're wrong in what you're saying, but where it's coming from is a valid place.
correct, correct,
Ye
correct, right.
right? Yeah.
Correct. And
Sorry.
so
Anyways.
my dad was like, and yes, you're absolutely right on that. So my dad is like the book of life, like that's the book of life, and I'm like, well, that I don't know what this book of life is, and he's like, well, you don't ever see that, and I'm like, but I do. Like I do see people that make plans taking care of their parents, and they very much do. Like they want to take care of their parents.
Mhm.
I was like, and we might not talk about it, but you're in my plan. Mom's in my plan. You know what I mean?
That yeah.
And so I was like, so I think maybe you feel like you're gonna be a burden, right? Which, like you said, that's the valid part about it. And so then my dad kind of got into a little more in depth, and he's like, I just know that I'm going through this, this, and this. And I'm like, look, Dad, we've talked about this. Like, you didn't grow up with a father. You've had to
Mm,
protect yourself the only way you know how. So why would you want to feel like you do matter to someone, knowing that someone was never there for you? It's easier to say you'd rather not be a burden. And so kind of like trying to help him with what I now know, right? But also I think, kind of like that frustration because I think there's a different element when I'm talking to someone that I don't know. And I think I just read the room for the sake of awareness. And I understand that, like, if they're not there, they're not there. And I can provide space, but that's it. But when
mhm.
it's your own dad, when it's your own brother, when it's your own family, your own friends, like, there's something there that's like, fuck, I want you to get it. I
Yeah.
want you, like, Santi, I want you to stay, or like my brother, or even with myself, I'm sure they felt the same things, right? Like they know what's right, and they're like, I know what the fuck is happening to you in your life right now. Just fucking
Yeah.
do
Just
this.
get
Just
it.
do this. And so
Yeah.
there was definitely a little bit of frustration of like, God damn it, dad, you could be so much fucking more free and happy if you just step the fuck up. You know what I mean? But also holding
That's just
back because I know
yeah,
that that's not going to be helpful towards him or towards myself.
yeah. I mean, that's his cross to bear, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, no, most definitely. And I asked that because I know I've seen growth in my dad, and it makes me feel a lot of feelings, man. Honestly, from sometimes pity, to be honest, which is that I think
Mm.
that's the one feeling I'm most shameful for, to be honest, to happiness, man, to joy. That's like, oh man, you're getting it, and whatever, to his own degree.
Do you because now that I'm thinking more about this too, do you ever feel guilt?
Oh yeah, most
Yeah,
definitely.
because
I
that's
feel there's
another
a
thing.
weird sense of guilt. Yeah,
Because I think that that's another thing that did surface for me today. I actually texted my dad today and was just like, "Hey, I just wanted to just tell you that I love you. Like, thank you for everything you do for us." And I say that because I think the guilt actually comes from like some of the resentment that I've held towards him, and then now
mm,
him communicating and like expressing, and not to throw it in my face because I've been gaslighted, right? Where like like my mom would do something that was really fucked up, and then it's like,
yeah,
oh well, it's because I care, and it's like fuck. Well, now I feel like a piece of shit, right? And
yeah,
it's not. It definitely wasn't that. It's like the more I'm getting to know my dad, the more that I'm like, damn, dude, like I've kind of been judging him and held resentment for him, thinking that he's just like been a douche. But my boy's out here trying to fucking navigate and make shit happen for me, you
yeah.
know?
In his own way. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And so I feel like that's why the conversations are so powerful though.
yeah.
Because without those conversations, there's just this resentment on both ends.
Right.
Where
Well,
not
yeah,
again, not that it justifies it, but it's like, whoa, this is really putting perspective into why you think you're loving me the best way you can, but you could do a
yeah,
lot less and do a lot more for me.
yeah.
Like
Well, yeah,
he went as far as to tell me, like, I was like, hey, if I asked you to go to a game for me now, he's like, my dad said, no, because you're not a kid anymore. Like when you were a kid, I did my time for you and I did
oh
what I had
wow,
to do for you, but you're not a kid anymore. Like, so
yeah,
if I want to go play on a Saturday, then I'm going to go do that instead of going to spend time with you.
got it. That's
To
it.
which
That's so interesting.
to
Yeah,
which I was like, "Fuck," because then I and what like you said, like, initially, I'm like,
yeah,
"What the fuck?"
yeah,
But then I kind of, I tried to, like, pick his brain, and I'm like, "Okay,
yeah.
like, that's fair. So, do you feel like once we're adults, we don't deserve to be loved? Like, why are we in
Mhm.
relationships as adults? Like, does
Yeah,
love not matter once you're grown? Do we not
yeah,
listen anymore? Like, is it just a requirement for kids? And is it
yeah,
like you get it, good, and if you don't, then you're shit out of luck, but once you're grown up, it's too late now, you know?"
yeah. And it's funny that like it doesn't impact you that way because you
Right.
know better, right? You like, oh,
Yeah.
that's my dad. That's how he. The other day, dude, my dad said some shit because we had a like real quick because I do want to get into all these other
Oh, yeah, yeah,
episodes.
yeah, for sure.
um the like a few weeks back, well, actually a few months ago, a while back, me and my dad were able to have a really in-depth conversation and we shared a lot. And I told him about like my fear of death, and that's one of my biggest fears, and I think one of the leading causes to like the panic attacks and all the whatever shit I feel, because he's always very like, what the fuck is wrong, bro? Like, why are you tripping,
Oh, okay, okay.
and so we had an in-depth conversation. And so a few weeks back, I had taken the dog to my sister's, and we're all chilling. And I think he sees the relationship I have with Whiskey, my pup, and he's just like, "Damn, dude, that dog loves you. You fucking love that dog." And then he said this. He's like, "You just wait when he dies. Just wait." He legit, dog. Said, just
Oh,
wait to see the day that that dog dies on
oh
you.
my
He's just
gosh.
like, you're not gonna hack it. Like you're, and I was just like, okay, pop, like
Damn.
like but I did not take it. I
Sure, you didn't
didn't
take it
take it
personal.
personal, and I think there was a point in my journey where I would have, where I
Right.
would have been like, why the fuck would you say that? Like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Blah blah blah. But I know because I know where he said it from was a place of concern of my well-being.
Like seeing you so happy and having such a deep connection with someone or
I think
with
it
your
was
dog,
like,
right?
I think what he probably thought was, how the fuck is he gonna do it? Like, I think it was a place of concern, which is why he said it. And in this sick way was probably him just like telling me, hey, like,
Right.
prepare yourself. He could have said it differently. But yeah,
like
dude.
like in a very weird way was trying to protect you and let you know, hey, this is probably gonna hurt
Exactly,
someday.
dude. Exactly. And even my sisters were like, "What the fuck, dude? That's kind of fucked up."
Damn.
But
Which
yeah,
then like which kind of then kind of like further ask the question like, damn, I wonder what part of grieving he hasn't been able to do that
yeah,
that like has maybe arises for him that feels
that
like
he's
he
still
wants you
feeling.
to prepare for you, right?
That
Like,
he's still feeling. Yeah, most def,
yeah, yeah,
man.
yeah, yeah.
And
It's
then I
just so
mean,
interesting.
and you're right. It might be from a place of that wisdom. You're right. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Again, not that it justifies it, but like I said, like
Uh-huh.
where all that really comes from, like, God, that's so interesting, dude. So interesting.
Yeah. So let's get into our these folks, man. I mean, we got to give a quick shout out. Cesar, Mitzi, Viri, Renee, Cynthia. I mean, I think that's everyone, right? I didn't
That's
miss
everyone.
anyone,
No, you didn't miss
dude. I
anyone.
mean,
That's
we
it.
we had just such great conversations with all of them. Sometimes some things went over our heads, and we had to ask questions, and
Yep,
that's totally
absolutely.
fine. I mean, these are the professionals, and once again, man, what a privilege it was to like be able to talk with them and be in the same space with them. It was really eye opening.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Yeah, so what that that was quite an experience. I mean, so I wrote down just like really quick a little bit just to kind of remind our audience too of how it was. And if you have a chance, man, go back and listen to these episodes. They were really, really, really insightful. They're really fun to do. Also, like I really enjoyed those conversations. We had Cesar, who for me, and these are kind of like my experiences with each and every single one of them. I think for me, Cesar was it was nice to just sit in a room with another man and to relate on a personal level while also having him as a professional, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think that was always something that's been very intimidating for me. I mean, as I said, my therapist is actually female, and I think there was a lot of reasons behind that. I think that mother wound too made it feel a lot safer around women than around men. So it was cool to talk to Cessa, to talk a little bit of shit, to have some light
Mhm.
conversation, but then to have him like really educate us and to throw some wisdom at us, talk about like the psychedelics. Something that I was very honest with him too, and I'm like, yo, I don't know how my mom would feel about that, knowing that I was over here trying to do some shrooms and things like that. You know what I mean? So it was really cool
Mhm.
to not only to bring it to the table, but to for him just being so willing to listen. Mitzi, Mitzi that challenged us, dude, with the chapters of our lives, which was very eye opening for me as well. Because I
Mhm.
think what was it, man? If I remember correctly, we had to write at least like 8 chapters,
Yeah, I think
and
I think it was 7 with the 8th one being optional, I believe,
the
something like
eighth one
that.
was supposed to be our chapter right now, right? Like we're in
Got
present
it.
day or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And so,
Mhm.
but what was interesting about that is, Sut and I, we don't debrief on these things beforehand. We really wait till the episode. I mean, we talk a little bit about where the conversation is going to go, but in terms of like really bringing the juice, it's not till the episode. And so, we had no idea, but one thing that was very interesting was how out of those 7 chapters, I think like more than half of them happened within the first couple years of our lives, right? And so it was
Mhm.
just kind of eye-opening
That's
when
right.
I remember reflecting with her and she kind of brought some clarity to that, to how much impact and how much of what shapes us really does happen in our early childhood. And that was like proven, right? Because you could read it and oh yeah, sure, like what I'm doing with Julian, like whatever, he has a whole life ahead of him, but it was like, holy shit, even at 30 years old, I could have written so many things. And what was interesting is I feel like as I got older, it was a generic ass chapter, right? Like the growth in my life, right? Which is like 18 to 28, right?
Yeah.
But then my first ones were like that moment that that person hit you, right? Like just like
Mhm.
a whole chapter to a very specific incident. So I thought
That
that was very
moment.
very very interesting. We had Vidi and Renee that did the Reiki cleanse, right? And we talked about the impact with the boys,
Mm.
which was also very very is very validating also to hear, very reassuring to have people like Vidi, people like Renee that really get it, that understand it, that are really trying to help from a place of love, that have the cultural awareness to understand, and even just having real good understanding of how these boys are being raised and the men that are in their lives, and not justifying them, but understanding how important that tool is in order for them to create impact in these kids' lives, right?
Yeah.
And really plant these seeds and create something sustainable for them. And then Cynthia, of course, which I think the biggest thing that I took away from the conversation with Cynthia was probably just all of our contributions to machismo, both men and women, calling us both out
Yeah.
for it. Um, and more importantly, though, that the conversation wasn't about pointing the finger towards men or women, but trying to bridge the gap. Understand that we've all created this mess, we've all created this problem, we've all contributed to it, but more importantly, let's bridge the gap to come together in order to create something healthier and better. So that to me, I told her, I was like, thank you so much because it's tough, right? Especially, I feel like I'm trying to see things very differently. I'm trying to shed light on a lot of these topics. But at the end of the day, the name is still the Modern Macho. And I'm like, so to really feel like I have any space or any right to sit down with the woman and say, "Hey, this is how I feel about, how you've made me feel with how I need to be a man." Is very difficult for me. I think I need that safe space sometimes too to know that it's like I'm not attacking. I just want us to have these conversations because I want to know where I'm making these mistakes too so we can do better. So I appreciated her conversation so, so, so much. And so once again, a big thank you. That's a little recap. And then yeah, dude, now we talk.
Yeah, no, definitely, man. I think with Cesar, and I had told you earlier. And by the way, man, I just gotta name it real quick, just so everyone knows. Just so everyone knows, man.
Uh-oh.
The
Uh-oh.
way me and Carlos look at each other, we're not colleagues. We don't sit here and be like, okay, this is what we're gonna discuss. So I mean, we have some structure to it, most definitely.
Sure.
I say that to say that like I'm really appreciative that I get to do this with a friend and that we get to be so authentic and so organic with this because I mean we've been working at it for a minute, right?
Right.
Don't get me wrong. But I think it's important to name that because that's the boundary I have when it comes to this. Is like first and foremost, like you're my boy. So I just want to say that real quick.
Show, bro. I appreciate that.
But anywho, with Cesar, I just thought, man, drugs are cool. That's honestly that's what that's what I took away from that conversation. I was like, fuck it. Just give them all to me.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. Get him
And
out. Get him
get
out.
them, because it was so interesting. Like, I mean, I had heard about like psychedelics and stuff. Like, I didn't know anything about the ketamine thing because I think ketamine is a pretty hardcore drug, if I'm not mistaken. Like, I mean, I mean, whatever, it's pretty hardcore and whatnot. So, but when he brought in that science part, and I think, that was the part that was very, very interesting because he talked about EDMR, correct?
Right. Oh yeah, yeah, he did. He did.
And then started going into that whole process. I think for me, that was very interesting how there's a science to healing trauma. And I'm not going to lie, I'm still skeptical. Like
Mm,
there's a
yeah.
part of me where I'm like, does it really heal? Like, and I think I'm skeptical from a place of maybe even fear of like, do I try this? And what if it doesn't work? And what if it does? Because that's just how my mind works. I think it's that anxiety that starts attacking any idea that comes to my brain or
Sure.
anyone's brain, anyone that suffers from anxiety. But I'm like, it also, I think but the fear comes from the fact that it gives me hope,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, it's intriguing, right?
And
Yeah.
so I really thought that was interesting. And it's one of those things where I'm like, man, like I've really been also interested in reaching out to him because I've actually never had a positive experience going to therapy with another male therapist.
Mm, mm.
It's just like, and maybe I'm the problem, I'll name that too, where I just go in, I'm like, I'm ready to lock horns, I'm like, oh, what are you gonna tell me,
Listen,
Mister
motherfucker, you're in my
Mister
therapy
Man?
session.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What are you gonna tell me? And I also think like I wouldn't be surprised if I was the person in the wrong or with coming in with that maybe unhealthy perspective because who am I used to getting bossed around by? My mom and my sisters. And whenever I
Mm,
was bossed around by my dad, it was always from a very unhealthy place. Once again, no shade towards my pops, love him to death, but it just is what it is, right? And so it could be that, right? And then with that, like I think tying that in with Mitzi and the childhood traumas, kind of like what you said, right? I think for me, as we went into those chapters, and you're right, like so many of my chapters were from my childhood, and it's funny because it almost made me reflect of my most recent, tribulations that may have caused the wounds, man, they're
Mm,
healed. They're healed. I would say that my wounds from the age of 15 easily healed. There's nothing that sticks around with me where I'm like, I think about it on a day to day basis.
I
Fully
see.
healed.
It's
Anything before that, definitely before 10, those are the wounds that are just fucking
a good
there.
point.
They're festering. They're festering and and so it's just it's an interesting realization, right?
Yeah.
Of how deep those wounds really go and how resistant they are to the healing, right? um
Well, and you bring up a good
yeah,
point, which is healed, not gone,
right,
right? Like
right,
that's not the like, and I think that that's a lot of. I mean, that was my perspective. Is like, okay, at some point, the years are gonna go on and go on and go on, and this shit's just gonna we're gonna forget about it. It's gonna
yeah,
disappear, and it's like, nah, man. I've really had to intentionally think about these things and understand that I have to heal from them. And to your point, right? Like this childhood stuff, it's like it's not supposed to go away. It's not gonna go away. It's healing it, not erasing it, right?
yeah.
Because I think that that's something that was also very new to me. And you know what's interesting is when we read the Four Agreements, one of the things that it discussed was like the domestication,
Mm,
right? Essentially being products of our environment. But one of the things it says
right,
is like you've been a victim. You've been a victim to your and dude, and I'll never forget going into that session that night, just being so triggered by that because I couldn't help but think like, nah, but I'm not a victim, right? I'm not a
yeah,
victim. Like I'm not a victim. Like fuck that. I'm no victim. And it happened around the same time. And so I think it really put into perspective like, no, I think what you think is the victim needs to be redefined a little bit because as the chapters are happening, I'm like, well, in a way, I have been a victim because those things stick out to me without me wanting them to. I didn't get to choose to have those things happen to me. They
yeah.
happen. Now, does that mean that I sit around and do nothing about it? No, that's why I'm where I'm at. That's why I'm doing the work that I can to hopefully try to tackle some of this stuff. And to your point, I know I'm avoiding some of it. You know,
No,
I
I
know
mean,
that I'm avoiding some of it,
yeah,
but I think as I was going through this, like, nah, I'm not a victim though. Like, no fucking way I'm a victim. And then to
hmm,
go through this exercise where it's like, oh, so you chose to make six of these chapters out of seven based off of something that happened to you from 1 to 5? No. So then why'd they stand out to you?
mm,
And that
hmm,
kind of shifted and I think really put it into perspective to me of like, you have been a product of these things, dude.
yeah. I mean, yeah, and once again, like you could phrase it however you'd like. The
Yeah.
reality stands,
Yeah. Yeah, for
and
sure.
so yeah, that's definitely powerful there. Um, and then when Vivian and Rene, when they came in, talked about, once again, the chakras. I'm really about that shit, dude. That really just mainly talking about it. Hold on. More talking about it and like as opposed to like, because I do think I have a hard time. And this is totally not even I love the exercise,
Hmm.
but I
Hmm.
have such a hard time sometimes. Like, and I don't know. I think it must be that I don't practice it enough
Sure.
where I do it in these systems because I thought that was cool. I just can't center myself sometimes, and I
Right.
start thinking of dumb shit. I think I had said that story when Denise and I went to the spa on Santa Barbara, and they started putting those hot rocks on me. So you
I
could
could
just
just
imagine.
imagine you. And
you,
and dude, the thing is we're so alike that once one thought gets into your fucking head, oh, you're
it's
gone.
over.
You're
It's
gone.
fucking over. And so like I'm laying down and she's like the therapist person's standing above my head, putting these fucking hot rocks from my forehead down the center towards like my abdomen. And dude, she gets to my chest and I just like I just let out that little rip. But the funniest part is that I guess I was making the therapist person laugh too. Because
Oh,
afterwards,
no.
because then she switched over, went to Denise, and she's like, "Your husband just kept making me laugh. Like I couldn't take any of it seriously." So,
But but you
anyways, that's what was that?
no, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that that's the same energy that I
Mm.
tend to bring into those spaces, whether I'm laughing or not. Because even if I'm not laughing, man, I'm just thinking about something else. I'm taking it too seriously, or I don't know,
Right.
you know.
But I think here's the difference though, and this is kind of what I reflected on that too, is I think having a space for us to communicate that though
Yeah,
is why we're not discouraged to do it again.
most
Because
def.
I think most of the times it's you try it once, you fucking sucked at it, or I sucked at it, and
I'm
it's
not doing
like
that shit
this shit
again.
ain't for me, right? Like yoga's not for me.
Marginal gains.
Yeah, dude, like like this whole fucking thing is not for me. And so I think being able to communicate like, hey, fuck it, like this should know. I think the fact that you're saying that you're acknowledging that it's gonna take practice is
Yeah,
like you understand it's not gonna happen overnight. And more importantly, believe it or not, this is kind of huge if you think about it because normally when we're not good at something, we'll kick our ass. And here we are
yeah,
laughing and acknowledging, "Hey, I wasn't good at it, but it's going to take practice." Like,
yeah. I'll
bro,
do it
like
again. Fuck it.
that right there, believe it or not, is breaking a massive cycle because
Yeah,
you took a second, you weren't perfect at it. You didn't say I'm never doing this shit again, and you also told yourself, "Hey, it's a step in the right direction. If I want to get better, I just need to do it more often."
that's very true. I didn't even think about that, bro.
This is like
That's
healthy, I
dope.
guess this is the shit that's crazy and it's not normal for us to think, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you're definitely right with that.
How did you feel
Um,
about the tying into that? Because I had a note for that. How'd you feel
mhm.
about the words of affirmation when she had us like
Oh,
say nice
bro.
things about
Yeah.
ourselves?
I don't even remember. That's all a blur, bro. I don't even remember what I said. I think I tend to go to what people say about me or like what I remember what people say about
Mm.
me. Um,
Ooh, okay.
I don't know, like, and just because I trust it, like, I'll trust it. But it doesn't feel as genuine as I would like it to be, because even the genuine things I'm thinking about myself at this point in time or like there's still that other part of my brain that says, "Shut the fuck up," like whatever, like that comeback,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
comeback.
yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean?
The
Yeah,
the humbling, right?
yeah, yeah,
So do you
the
think would you
humbling.
say because this is kind of how I process it and I'm reflecting as you're saying this, would you say that in terms of like being nicer to yourself, you've you're getting better at adjusting your filter, but it's still based off of what others are saying. Like you're picking and choosing the
Hmm.
nice things, but nonetheless, it's not what you're telling yourself. It's still based off of what others are saying. Would you say that you're getting better at like your filter, not so
Yeah,
much you speaking nicely to yourself? Because that's kind of how I
uh,
feel about it. Or is that just me?
a little bit. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a little bit of everything. Where I mean, I think I'm also listening to myself,
Okay.
but it's still led by the
Yeah.
validation the world gives me. If that
Damn.
makes sense.
No, it does.
Which I also don't think is the worst thing. I think I mean, I don't wanna be this fucking non-reflective or non-aware person where, like, people are telling me, "No, no, Santi, you're actually kind of a piece of shit." And I'm over here like, "Nah, I'm awesome."
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah. Like it
that's a
just all
problem
this
too.
ego, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a problem too, and so but I think I am trying to find that balance in a very careful manner that I never overstep. Like, I never do one of these puppies, you know?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah,
So,
I definitely I think and this is for both of us, I think there definitely needs to be a lot more value from our own words than from others, whether they're good or bad, right?
yeah. No, yeah,
Because I think
definitely.
we talked about that, right, too? Like, taking things personal can even be the good things, like,
Yeah.
fully relying on what like, "Santi, you're amazing," and it's like, "Oh, I need that," right? I need
Mhm.
all that, and how could that can be even dangerous, I think, too? Because I mean, I've talked about this before, but that was a big part of my cheating. Was
Mm,
just like I was just leaning wherever I heard nice things, and it's like
right.
that was the disease, right? Because I knew that I really wasn't gonna put time and effort into any of these individuals because I really didn't have a connection with them. It was just like,
Yeah.
"Oh, cool. I'm down." Like, you know what I mean? Like, what you said was nice. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
No,
That's a
that
good point.
super makes sense, yeah. And I really enjoyed also talking about, like, that those early adolescent, middle school age kids, and if
Mm.
you teach at the middle school level, so many fucking props, man. I could never. That's I'll leave it at that, man. Like I feel like that is where they get introduced to so many things, like worldly things, right? And not only that, they're being hit from the exterior of the world, sex, drugs, money, family problems, yada yada, right? They're coming to the realization at the same time their bodies are changing, the
Mhm.
internal thing, and so, god damn, I mean, I fucking hated my middle school years. And when I worked at a middle school, I felt like I saw a lot of that. I saw a lot of the issues that kids at that age are dealing with, and so
And
and
and and
so to do the work with man, that's wild.
and I
Big
think
props
just
to
as
them.
and I think just as important too, they're also creating their own opinions at this age, right?
Mhm.
I think, I mean, they always we always are, right, and should be, right, and allowed to some more than others. But like I feel like in the teenage years, because we're being slapped with so much, like that's when we really start having a lot of opinions about things.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes that can be, yeah, that can be very
That's
intense.
dangerous, man.
Yeah.
I mean, but we're let's keep it positive. I'm over here shitting on everything.
No, no,
Uh,
no, it's all good. Keeping it
and then
real, keeping it real.
finally, our talk with Cynthia. I think it was enlightening to be able to have a conversation about machismo, and see it from a place of like that female perspective. I felt like a lot of what she said, I constantly found myself thinking back to my sisters
Mm,
because I mean, once again, like I grew up in a female dominated home. Um, and my sisters were always quick to tell me, man, like you're like my parents treat you different because you're a boy, and they just give me the whole spiel. And I never took it personal, to be honest, because it's like, well, who am I to take it personal? I feel like if anything, they're the ones who should take it
sure,
personal
sure.
because I'm
You're just getting the
being
benefits, right?
I'm getting the benefits, I'm not gonna be
Right.
like, "Shut up, no, I'm not." Like,
Yeah,
I'm
so
just
what?
like, I'm kinda like, "Are you telling me or are you telling my parents?" Like, I mean, whose fault is it
Right.
really?
And hey, you know what's crazy? Like, because I want to say this real quick. The irony now that in a way, at a kid, like, fuck it, I'm gonna take advantage of my privilege. And now the irony of like, look where we're at now, trying to advocate not only for us as men, but even for our women of like, yo, we are acknowledging our privilege and we want to do what we can to help ourselves and to help you guys and
Mhm.
really come together as a community. You know what I mean?
Most def, man, and I mean, and it's obviously it's within the family, it's fun.
Sure, sure,
I would like
sure.
to say I can't speak for them, but like nothing traumatic ever came of that favoritism, like in terms of like how they treated us, right?
Right,
And
right,
that's
right.
also not to say I was the favorite, right? I mean, you know, um, I don't know if that's necessarily true. Our parents also grew up in a very traditional household, and so they're going to do the things they're going to do the things the way things were done to them, you know what I
Absolutely.
mean? And
Yeah.
so I think it really is more of that, not to say that it's right or wrong, should still be reflected upon. And and I think even now it's still a point that gets brought up. And it's funny because I do see my parents be a little bit more like, yeah, you're right.
Hey, first step, bro. They're
Yeah.
accepting. They're accepting.
Yeah, no, most dev. So, man, yeah, dude, I really enjoyed speaking with all these folks, man. And I think we need to bring them back, man. And I think we need to maybe harp in a little bit more on these things,
Yeah.
because I feel like they were named and we went a little bit, but there's some deep waters I'm sure that these folks could guide us through.
Sure. And I feel to your point, right? Those first 30, 40 minutes is really feeling each other out kind of, and it always seems
Yeah.
like then we get into good conversation. So I think the fact that we've broken the ice to kind of go back with them and sit down and be like, hey, and I think even I mean, even for us to have a second to reflect, right?
Hmm.
And go back and be like, hey, you know what, Cesar, you kind of mentioned some of this stuff that like kind of clicked, dude.
Yeah.
Or, this is how I was feeling about it. And it's funny you mentioned about him about just going to women, right? And having women were really the ones that you would talk to about stuff, and kind of he felt safer talking to women and almost like being challenged by men. And there's this part of me too that feels like, yeah, I feel those things too. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with going to therapy with a woman, right? But I think we're also at a point too that acknowledge that it's like it goes beyond the safety and acknowledging that like as men we've kind of navigated the world a little differently. Whether
Hmm.
whether it's been around women or around men, just based off of how we look, we've
Yeah.
navigated the world differently. And I think
Hmm.
both of us are kind of at a point where we're kind of like more open to seeing that and accepting that, and more importantly seeing the value in sitting down with other men and being like, oh, you could be telling me the exact same thing, but it's really surrounding ourselves with other men that really kind of like breaks that cycle for real,
Yeah.
because that within itself, I think, is radical. It's groundbreaking, really.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally hear you. I would even like, I think this, I don't know if this is where you were taking it, and taking it a little step further that way from my perspective is like, sometimes I think to myself, dude, is this me continuing to put the labor of my emotion on women?
Hmm.
And I constantly think that. And And then I think of it from the economic side, and I'm like, well, I'm supporting women business, you know. You know, like,
Like, but you fucking asshole. I'm
hey,
like,
bro.
here you are using your privilege to justify why it's okay.
And they're both true though.
No, but you're
Like you,
absolutely. I totally hear you, bro.
and that's honestly
Cancelled.
that's not even me being like saying it from a dick perspective,
No, I
but
hear
from
what you're
like that
saying.
genuine perspective of like, you know, and on a more practical perspective, how many Latino brown male therapists do we really have,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and even clients, dude. It's crazy
Yeah.
how obviously I don't get into any of the specifics because well, first of all, they're not going to share it with me. But two, I
Hmm.
know better than to ask like, hey, so what's going on in your session? Like, no, but I do like to ask like, hey, what would you say your percentages of client? Oh, I actually don't have any male clients. I'm like, what? Like
Yeah.
that does kind of trip me out. I mean, maybe 3 years ago, I would have been like, duh, makes sense. But I think because it's become such a norm in my own life, um, and then now just being so much more involved with this movement and advocating for the last 2, 3 years on this now, and even us just having conversations where it just sounds a lot more normal, it
Yeah.
trips me the fuck out that I'm like, what? That's so crazy that we're not going to therapy, that we're not seeking this. And again, it's very valid, and I'm not shitting on it. Trust me, I get it. I totally understand. That's a huge reason of why we're here, why we have these conversations, why I think it's cool to have these initial conversations with them for us to
Hmm.
reflect, for you guys to join us on this reflection and also see like we get it,
Yeah.
and then see like, hey, I mean, I hope you're not intimidated by us, but like, don't think that we are like, sure, we're sitting at the table with them, right? Like, it's not like a client, it's not a client therapy thing. Like, we're collaborating on this, and sure, we're all sitting at the table, but let's remind you where we are at. And I'm well aware that there's a lot of work that I still need to do for myself and things that I want to get better at. And yeah, I mean, we're all individuals. I think it's very dehumanizing too to put, I've said this before, to put people on pedestals, right? To give them titles and be like, oh, you're this, you're expected to behave a certain way. And I think that
Yeah.
came from my parents, from the perfectionism that I saw in them, that they never made mistakes. But it is very, it's also been very, it's just very, I feel very grateful to being able to have those moments, dude. It's been very cool to, to learn from them. And you brought this up earlier, dude, to share like the space with you, right? Where it's not like I put an ad out or you put an ad out. We're like, hey, I'm thinking about collaborating on this project. Who wants in? But to kind of be like, hey, and maybe there's a sense of safety in that too,
Yeah.
right? That we're kind of going into this together. Who knows? But it's nice. I mean, it's nice to pick their brains, to have them challenge us, and kind of see things with a different perspective. Like some of this stuff really does like stick.
Yeah. Oh yeah, most definitely. Um, and yeah, and once again, I hope we have him back soon so we can continue that
Mm.
awesome reflection. Oh,
I'm manifesting this now, and you've actually brought this up before, but I think it'd be cool to bring them all together.
that would be sick, dude. Just like a little social mixer
Yeah,
type
like not
feel.
not not even for like. I mean, I'm sure maybe we could do some content for it, but I just feel like it would be sick to really just sit in a room with all of them and just kind of just mingle, get to know each other, and kind of like a very lighthearted environment for because I think part of that thing too is that like the intimidation,
Yeah.
right?
No, yeah, most definitely. Yeah, and I think the way I saw it too when I thought I was like, dude, like we have all these like therapists, people of color, like they're coming on and they're able to once again shine a part of therapy where it's it doesn't feel as white is the really the what I'm
Yeah,
thinking. It
for
doesn't
sure, for
feel
sure.
as like once again, especially for our communities of color, right? Sometimes the concepts can feel very just um academic and very up here and whatnot,
Right.
right?
PPD's nice.
The PPD is nice, exactly. And so to be able to have it from this different lens and perspective with this new generation of therapists who are fit to see this generation and this community of color, I think would be fucking great. I also had this thought of like, you're talking about therapy, the power of therapy. Obviously not everyone is there. Some people feel like therapy is not for them.
Yeah.
and I think all of that is super fair, you know? I would say I think
It's
it is
a
important
good
to
point.
feel because I think there's times where I'm like, like, I just I'm not gonna go to therapy or, like, whatever, but I never feel like I'm above it, you know? I'm always down to
I love
go,
that.
right? And I think that is super important that, as we gain our ways of being therapeutic to ourselves or finding folks in our circles who may be therapeutic, you know, making sure that, we don't ever feel like we're above therapy
Yeah, I love
in
that.
that traditional sense because there's also value in that. And I say that specifically because I feel like I know people in my life who they'll say shit like, "No, I find therapy in my own ways. I find therapy in my way. I don't need that shit." That's just the wrong approach. You
Right.
could be 100% right, and still the mentality I would challenge. Like,
Right.
maybe you don't need therapy. That also doesn't mean you're above it. You know that
Right.
I feel like But anywho, that's me really being nitpicky.
No, but I
And
think I think it
yeah,
brings up a really, really, really great point, which is that, first of all, therapy is therapy. And honestly, I think it's how we're protecting ourselves from really having to look within. Because I think everybody could use a therapy session, and I
oh
think
yeah,
I've used
dude.
this analogy before, dude. I mean, I think it's very valid as you're saying. I'm not knocking it either, but I think to shed light on it and to really understand what we're saying and maybe put it in a perspective that we could understand it better is it's very much like the gym, right? Where like,
Yep,
hey, son, like, you ever thought about going to the gym, dude? Like, it's good for you, blah blah. And again, we all make our choices. Some of us decide to prioritize that and really take care of our health and our diet. Some of us decide not to. I'm not the best at it, and it's something that I know that I need to work on, right? And I'm at least accepting of where I'm at. That I understand that, hey, I'm not going to act like I go to the gym because I'm not. And if I'm not where I want to be, it's because I'm not making the best choices, and that's
yeah,
my start, right?
right.
But like when it comes to therapy, like you said, oh well, I that's, that the therapy part doesn't work for me. I find it in other ways. And the best way that for me, I feel like gave me a lot of clarity was like to go to the gym. Oh well, no, I play soccer. Okay.
Exactly.
That's cool. Like that's good for you. That's beneficial. I'm glad. But do you go to the gym? Oh, well, actually, I actually take swim classes on the weekends. Very beneficial. Very good for you.
Yeah.
Do you go to the gym, right? Like
Mhm.
there is no replacement for therapy. There are
Right.
things that are therapeutic,
Mhm.
right? And even what that could look like, bruh. I love to sing. Like singing helps me so much with my anxiety. Dancing
Mhm.
helps me so much just to fucking let loose,
Yeah.
right? Laughing, doing things like that, spending time with my friends, those things can be very therapeutic. But therapy is therapy.
Most definitely, dude. Yeah, no, I love that analogy. That's fucking sick, dude. Most def, man.
But hey man, I want to be mindful of time. We've had too much fun today. I actually
Too
really,
much
really
fun.
appreciated this episode. I'm glad we took a step back to just talk, and reflect on all this and share some laughs for a little while. Um, I want to give a big, 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 big thank you to you just for being so supportive for everything, dude. A big thank you to Al, to Q, to Matas for believing in the movement, for being involved with all of this, for just being willing to help, and knowing that they could reach out for help as well, and knowing that we have their full support, and um, that I'm willing to support in any way that I can. So it's been nice to grow this from a place of love, to have support from a place of love, and to see the community grow, to see all you guys, you know, showing up in the DMs. We see you guys. You guys that are showing love, you guys that are resonating with the messages, you guys that are sharing even some of the things that you guys are doing, whether it's with your wives, whether it's with your kids, whether it's with your friends, your family, and how you're trying to do things differently. Like, hey, like we said, right? Those, what is it? Marginal gains. We
Marginal
might not.
gains,
We're not gonna
baby.
do this. We're not gonna do this shit overnight. It's just not gonna happen. So
Mhm.
the fact that we're taking steps in the right direction, I think, is something that needs to be celebrated and needs to be recognized in a way that we continue to move forward, right? Because this ain't it. We have to use this as fuel to kind of stay fired up and keep fucking moving forward, but knowing that we don't need to keep moving forward to be worthy of where we're at.
Yep.
So
Most def, man.
check in, send us messages, like, subscribe, get in on the YouTube. um Share this with any of your homies, share this with anyone that you think that could use a message that resonates, that feels like this stuff is for men that are soft, for men that
Mhm.
are, that are weak, for men that are just not man enough. Share it with them. Let them know that we get it, that we understand it, and that we can start by having the conversations. So, yeah, dude. Unless you have anything else,
Good, man. Good night, everybody. Have a nice day.
y'all have a good week. We'll check in with you guys soon.